But we can kick it off and get into some good questions because I'm excited about this one.
Me too. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me too.
No worries, man. You literally, whenever I look at somebody's work, it's just, for me, it's like, I want to know the behind the scenes of it. Because I know for myself, like, I get kind of this weird feedback where they're like, oh, your work's so moody, or maybe you have these tones that aren't like expressive enough. Like, why is your tones not warm? Why do you like take the photos that you do?
Yeah,
So it's like conversations like this where I'm like, okay, like, let's get into it because we kind of get behind the person.
Yeah.
And so the starting kind of question on this podcast is kind of the nature of the idea of the pod, where we're interviewing creatives of all kinds to figure out just the similarities between the professions in a way. And the starting question is illuminates the biggest challenge I think we face as creatives, which is we're not actually very clear what we do. Because if you went to somebody and they asked you, well, I'll start with the question.
Okay.
The question that we like to start off with is if you were in an Uber and the Uber driver is making small talk with you,
Okay.
and asks you, who are you and what do you do? How would you respond?
Oh man,
We got to tell the people.
That opens the floor to so much too, because like surface level, like you see what you see on social media, which is what everyone is posting on their own page, like face value, right? But I think there's just so many layers to people, like an individual, and I try to like actually approach most people with the mindset that no matter who it is, there's something I can learn from them. So I think this is like really like tough question to answer for me.
Everybody, man.
Yeah, like there's so many like avenues you could take with this. But if I'm in the Uber, say I got like 5 minutes, a few minutes to just
Yeah, like if you had the one sentence answer, maybe you're tired and you don't even want to like talk to the guy, and you're just like, I'm just gonna leave you one sentence. Like,
yeah.
what's the way to sum up?
Yeah, I'd probably say my name's Daniel, and I do professional photography on the side. It's kind of like a side gig that I have going on. And I just work with name brands, and I travel the world shooting cool products, doing cool things, and just try to take their products on my adventures and just showcase them as I go, wherever I go.
It's just the interesting
Something
part
like
is
that.
because you led with the side project.
Yeah.
And that's like, so do you identify with the side project more so than the main project, or?
That's such a good question. Yeah. I think to my core, yes, I would say yes. My full-time job is, I don't know, like it feels weird because like this is my background in education, and this is what I've studied for years, and I'm a banker. I'm essentially like a broker. Work for a major Canadian bank, and to me, like there's a lot of growth within the company, growth potential, and a lot of things that you can do within the company. There's something for everyone. I mean, it's literally one of Canada's largest companies, so there's something there for everyone. You can go into law, marketing, you can go into content creation, even with them in-house. But I focus solely on like trading, basically. So I'm on the investment side in wealth. As much as I have a background in that, and I have always taken like an interest in it, to answer your question directly, I wouldn't say it's my core interest because I don't necessarily have a full passion for it.
Okay.
It's a way to kind of make ends meet. Like it puts food on the table, and it's consistent, steady income. It's still rewarding work. There's still a lot of potential for me. I still get to do really fun things in my job, but where my heart lies is really like travel the world, take my camera with me.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
so you're thinking about making the jump at some point, or you like this sort of like stability base, or?
I'm in a pretty unique situation. As much as I would love to make that jump, as a content creator, I think most of us are pretty free with our time, whether we're part-time or full-time. However, considering I have a toddler, it's really hard for me to give up something that is steady, because I'm not only providing for myself, I'm providing for him too. And not if I was to make the jump, it would have to be pretty strategic and I'd have to set myself up for it. But that is the goal eventually. One day down the road, I would absolutely love to do that. So just kind of financially setting myself up so that I can take that risk. You know, if I was to go even a couple weeks without an income, that means I can't provide for my sons. And I, you know, as a dad, just have an obligation, responsibility to him to do that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a tough one.
It's that tough reality because even for me, it's like, let's say you're a 22-year-old creative that has, you haven't like got rent yet. Maybe you're still at home. You haven't you're working on like a per project basis, even like you don't have any retainer clients.
Yeah.
And then you're stressed because even you having to manage the finances, you're like, how many projects do I need to do to get a consistent revenue stream over time?
Right.
And then you land your first retainer and it's like $2,000 a month. And now all of a sudden you've established your base. And now your projects start acting as this like spending amount for you, where you're like, oh, well, I have a 2,000 base. Like that's what I can consistently rely on. And you start changing your mindset where maybe 3 to 5 years come down the road, you have 2 or 3 retainer clients that are at 3,000 a month. And it starts building into like the responsibility aspect of it. And it's almost like the full send creative project kind of lifestyle just is in a way not appealing in the sense, because like you're slowly building up these responsibilities. And I just find like the dilemma kind of, or not even the dilemma, but like the risk mitigation in a way kind of like takes shape for everybody in a different way, and the gravity of the seriousness of it differs on personal situations, and it's just wild because we all have to deal with it.
Well said. And I like how we kind of started this by you were explaining that you are looking for other creators from other disciplines, and the podcast is kind of predicated on art, because there's a lot in what you just said that you could even apply to finance or like my job, my full-time job, which is so interesting to me because risk is the basis of trading, right? And when you boil it down to, what stock should I buy? I'm digressing for a moment from content creation, but it's applicable. The concepts are applicable because individually, when someone is going to place a trade, they're weighing all of these risks in their mind, like whether or not I should buy this stock or this company. Like, is it something I love enough or I believe in that I'm going to invest in them? And that I find is a direct relationship to what you just explained, because as a content creator, that's the exact risk analysis that we're doing on ourselves, whether or not we should invest in ourselves.
Wild, right?
Yeah. I think, yeah.
It's crazy when you think about it. And the funny thing for me too, like the way that you just said that is actually, this is something that's been running through my head the last few months, because I look at one creator that I've really looked up to in the last few years, especially through COVID, was I've been just watching Sam Newton. I don't know if you know. Yeah. His story is insane.
Yeah.
And I just look at his risk appetite as unfathomable for me. I'm very strategic in how I set myself up to make big risk decisions. So I try to eliminate all opportunities for failure before making a high risk decision.
I'm similar.
Yeah.
Yes.
It just takes longer. And some people are like, overnight, they're like, I'm moving to Bali.
It's like a cautious approach, I would say.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that boils down to like personality or like the psychology of people and how we all differ from each other and how we think. But yeah, definitely, like I can definitely resonate with that because I'm not quick to do anything. And I mean, having a toddler means I'm putting him before a lot of the decisions I want to make because I know that I need to do what's responsible for the family.
So then I guess my next question is how, what's the appealing part then for the content creation side of you? Like what makes you want to dabble in this world?
So I started traveling. Well, actually, my mom took me on my first trip, I think when I was 12, and we went down south, Caribbean, And ever since then, it was something that she wanted to instill in me and my sister. I'm going to go back to build. I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to go back a little
Hey,
bit to
tell the story.
give
Let's
you a
do it.
little bit of a base here. And for me, travel was something that had never really been fully introduced to. And so going to like your typical like resorts down south in Dominican or in the Caribbean, for me, like was a lot of fun, especially as a kid, like knowing that, oh wow, like there's even like another world out here. Like it's so different from back home. And that sparked something in me. And I didn't know it at the time. At the time, I was just a kid wanting to have a good time and just have fun and be a kid. And eventually, near the end of university, a buddy of mine, one of my best friends, and I decided we're going to backpack Europe, and we did a Euro trip. And this was like 2014, I believe.
Okay.
Um,
Sony A7 II era.
yeah, like I didn't even know what a camera was really. Like I didn't know anything about it. I went to a used store camera shop or like a used electronics store and bought a point and shoot Sony. It was a Sony at the time, and it was like refurbished. So like it just wasn't the best, but it worked. The purpose for doing so was because I wanted to document seeing another part of the world for my family and show my friends back home that, hey, look, I'm going to do something pretty neat. And this was kind of in and around the time that Instagram was fairly fresh. Like it was only maybe big on the scene for like 2 to 3 years at this time, right? So the focus wasn't even Instagram or wasn't social media. It was, I just wanted to showcase like, hey, having been to Dominican and what my mom has shown me growing up, like here's another part of the world. And I kind of developed this lust for travel and seeing new things. And I thought about it a lot over the years and like, why is it that I chose travel? And what I always kind of boiled back to is I like feeling like a kid again. Like it makes me feel like I'm 12 going on my first trip, seeing something new. And that feeling just, I don't know, you can't get it anywhere else. And then if you do something new, that excitement just kind of like flows right through me, and it flows out too. Like on recent trips with Brandon or Norway when I met up with another photographer friend of
Epic, by the
mine.
way.
Yeah, like it's just absolutely crazy when you see like what the world has to offer. And yeah, man, I'm just an overgrown child. I'm young at heart, you know? So that's what I'm chasing, is that feeling. And I feel like anytime I see somewhere new, it naturally just comes out of me.
So what's the connection then to capturing something while you're experiencing it?
Yeah. Oh, I guess I didn't actually answer your question fully, did I? So the
No, that's
reason for
okay.
travel,
Yeah.
travel was first. Like having a good time experiencing life, doing new things was inevitably first throughout all of this time. It wasn't until recent over the last couple of years that I did pick up a camera and wanted to actually learn. It had always been on my mind. I just never thought it was, oh, I can afford it, or that's a lot to learn. It was daunting. And then one day I just did it. I took my bonus at Christmas. I think it was Christmas one year, and was like, I'm going to buy I think I bought a T7i was my first camera like 2 or 3 years ago. And then I just sat in my basement and literally shot my water bottle, trying to figure out like, what do all the different settings do? And it slowly transitioned from travel being first to my photography leading me to different places first, and then the travel being second. And it really it's weird. Like it's kind of mixed. Like it's flip-flopped a bit. I started traveling first, and as much as I love travel did get me into the space of photography. And then now it's like the photography is perpetuating my travel. But I still have that lust for, these experiences. I'm looking for a way to blend them together so I can work and have fun and feel like a kid all at the same time.
Literally.
Yeah.
That's like the best way to put it. It's always a debate for me too, though, because like actually, this is like really interesting, because something that I've experienced over the last year and something that made me like photography less was doing trips without other photographers. And so I'm on this trip with like 2 or 3 other people, and they have no desire to capture the moment. they're more interested in like, we're on this trip as vacation, you know, Scotland, Iceland, Banff were the 3 places, and I did all 3 as the solo content creator, which
Oh,
is
wow.
wild when I think about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, why did I make that decision? I'm like, I need at least one other person who wants to take landscape photography with me. But by the end of the trip, they were just kind of like, did you enjoy that? And I'm like, yeah, like, why? They're like, well, you were just thinking about like what you needed to capture the whole time, and you were thinking about you know, I can say like something I want to mention to you later is like the debate with like the social media content versus the personal photo and like that kind of side of
Yeah.
things. It's like, do you ever experience something similar maybe where someone might look at you and be like, how did you find that rewarding? You took yourself almost out of the experience to capture it.
100%. Yeah. Definitely something like I think about, even that I try to be conscious of when I'm traveling, because I think there are moments that you should keep for yourself, or moments that you need to spend with your family or your friends when you are traveling. But then I think it's still okay to enjoy your passion. Like, I have a passion for photography. I have a passion for travel. Yes, a part of me really wants to get the shot. Yes, a part of me really wants to enjoy the experience. So it's really just a balance between the two, and trying to find that balance can be tricky, especially if you're traveling with others who may not understand that feeling. And in a lot of cases, like, because my camera is what's taking me to certain destinations in the first place, the reason for being there is, in some instances, like for certain locations, is to get the shot.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to, like, I want to see it so I can have that picture for myself, or maybe I can create something out of this scene that people have posted, you know, thousands of times, and I can make it my own. And I want that opportunity for myself, just to challenge myself in a different way. Oh, yeah.
It's a lot to
I don't-
unpack, right? It's
yeah,
like,
it's really fine balance between the two. What really came to mind though was that scene in The Life of Walter Mitty, where Sean Penn is trying to track down the ghost of the mountains, the snow leopard.
I
Right?
saw this movie a very long time ago.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Me too, same. But like I'm getting
stuck
shivers
out
just
for you,
thinking
yeah.
about it, because like this movie is just so like, I don't know the word for it. Like, it just speaks to me in a way. And yeah, that moment where he's like, he finally finds the snow leopard and he lines everything up and he is about to take the shot, and Ben Stiller finds him. He's like, aren't you gonna take it? And he's like, no, some moments are just better left for myself. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's
oh
wild.
man, like
Yeah, I just got the chills. So
it really
like,
put into perspective like how to approach finding that balance when I'm on it.
yeah, fair. It's for me, the most, yeah, literally, like, I've gone through that 100%, and it's just wild because we all have our own kind of variation of it, I think.
Yeah.
And but the wild thing is like, last year I had one photo I wanted to take more than any other photo. Actually, honestly, since I picked up a camera, there was one photo I wanted to do, and it was Old Man of Store in Isle of Skye.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right?
Yeah.
And that photo, like, we were in Portree because there's nowhere to stay in Isle of Skye. It's the biggest town. We're in some Airbnb like above a woman's like house. Like, it's like the most random thing. Wake up for sunrise, get to where we're supposed to hike to get to Old Man of Store, pouring rain, awful conditions, like just brutal. And then we have to hike through the rain. We're soaked. By the time we got to Old Man of Store, it dried up, clouds out. Like, it was perfect conditions for a bright light
No
photo.
way.
And I was just like, thank God. And you have to, once you get to Old Man of Store, you then have to like climb around and up a cliffside to get that kind of like iconic,
That angle.
yeah, that angle,
Like, as if you're level with it.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Or
that,
kind of looking down a bit.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like off into the distance that you then can like shoot downwards,
Say
right?
no more. I know exactly what you're talking about. The shot you're looking for.
I literally took that photo.
I'm envisioning it.
It's wild. I literally took that photo and then came home, edited it for a month, I'm gonna say, picking out the rocks I wanted to remove, bringing the vignette the way I wanted it to, how to recover the sky in certain areas. I bracketed it because I was just like, I bracketed it with like 6 brackets.
You
like
don't want to
six
miss it,
I
right?
don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
I'm like, we have to make this perfect. And the thing is, though, is the people I was with didn't take the photo, right? But I then printed that photo on a massive acrylic, and I've just had it in my bedroom, and it's like this thing, and it's just kind of lived in my bedroom out of the public sort of line of sight. And I'll talk to the people I was with about that trip, and that, you know, they were talking about kind of the more visceral experience of it. And when I talk of the trip, I talk about the photo part of it. But it all kind of comes full circle because I had a couple friends over a week ago, and we were talking, and they were just talking about why I didn't have any prints in my house as much as they were like, I thought you'd have a lot more of your photos on the wall. And I go, well, actually, there's something I can show you right now. And I like ran up to my room, and these were the first people to ever see this acrylic. And I brought it down, and it just like, it was so happy I could like show somebody this fully finished print, not on a screen, you know, and it was like in that moment where I was like, okay, this is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like that feeling that you get back where you're like, yes, it's a moment for yourself to experience.
Yeah.
And I would argue the people I was with were able to experience that more, like how the rain felt on their face, because I'm thinking about what my settings need to be by the time I get to the top of the thing, right?
Right.
But then I have this like almost thing that can live forever on this print, right? That I can look back to and show people and like have a story in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild.
I mean, that's a crazy story right there. Like the fact that the cloud just opened up at the right moment is like, that's what you dream of.
It's literally
as a
nuts.
photographer, right?
Yeah. It's that corny story, you know, where you're like, and then it worked. And you're just like, okay, but it's true. It did happen. Like we were driving in the rain. I was upset. It was our last day. I'm like, I'm not going to get the photo. I literally spent all this money to come to Scotland to get like,
and it'd been years build up to that too, right?
Pretty much, yeah, because there's like a few photographers like Billy Clicks, I don't know if you know him, who's like in the Scotland area taking incredible photography. What's his name? Ben McLean. I think he does videography for the Sidemen on YouTube. He'll go to Old Man Store every so often because they're UK based, and I just see these
I think I know
photos.
Ben McLean.
Yeah, he's like amazing.
Yeah.
Very talented. I think it's McLean is the last name. He has a YouTube channel too. It's good.
Okay.
Yeah. But
that's like one of those moments, I guess, where you feel like you've made it in a way.
them getting the photo, or
No, like when you showed your friends,
oh,
and
yeah,
they see it, and you can see like the visual reaction on them. I feel like for me, like if I was to have a moment like that, I'd in that moment I'd probably feel like I made it as a photographer. Like, wow, like the fact that I can bring that experience back to them and allow them to relive it just from one single photo.
yeah.
That would be like, that's like the highest honor as a photographer, I think, especially, you know, having kept it almost a secret, you know, in your room.
Basically.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I'm
Just for yourself
yeah,
though, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like
that's
that,
part of the challenge is, and that balance, going back to that balance, right? Is even though a lot of the places I've traveled to in the last year and a half or so have been work-based, there's still opportunity to take personal photos. And that's part of the reason why I'm there. That's part of the reason why I even chose that location to go to in the first place, is because I have envisioned some of these shots for myself that I wanted to capture. And having the opportunity to get them is like insane, because like you put so much time and effort to be there in the first place. And I don't want to let it pass, and I can't. Like if it's right in front of me, like I'm gonna take the picture and make it as good as I can, even if I only have half a second to take it and have to get back to the work. If conditions aren't like ideal, I mean, at least in my mind, I try not to let that get me down, and I just think of that as an excuse to come back.
that's true.
So I'm just like, I gotta come back.
Literally. Yeah. That's actually such a good point.
And it feels kind of neat too, because it's almost like you're chasing something. Gives me purpose.
Yeah. Is that then, was that kind of then, I always like to see if, I think at some point you come to the conclusion that you have almost like a creative mission.
Yeah.
Have you found your creative mission with this then? It sounds like you're close.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I think a large portion of my photography, because I'm still relatively new, 2.5, 3 years on the scene or so, and I wouldn't say like I'm some sort of guru or anything like that. I still have a lot to learn, And I try to kind of approach life in that sense as well. Like I'm a student of life. Like I'm taking feedback, I'm taking, criticism, and I'm kind of analyzing what is it that I can do different to grow myself as a photographer. And I'm still not at a level where I feel like I want to be. Personally, like whatever other people may feel about my work, they may think it's incredible, they may not. They may think I've oversaturated this photo, or maybe I didn't. Whatever criticism they may have is actually really helpful for me to dissect and determine what is it that I need to work on to improve. And without that criticism, I would never know it's something I need to work on. Personally, in my own mind, I still have my own goals and things that I would like to do with photography that I haven't had the opportunity to do yet. And the gist of what it is that I want to accomplish is to kind of be like a groundbreaker. Like I want to be someone who is doing things that haven't been done before. And it's such a hard thing to do because it feels like everything's already been done.
Yeah.
So how do you break the shell? How do you break out of that mold? And that's kind of what I'm asking myself with every project I take on. How can I do something different with this project I haven't done before to learn and grow? And it's more just kind of like a self-growth kind of thing in the space of photography. But yeah, I want to break the rules. I want to do something different.
That's actually sick.
I don't know how.
Like,
I don't know what that looks like, but that's what I want to do.
When you say then your self-growth with photography, would you consider yourself someone who's always been creative, or was this something?
No.
No.
I started in music. I grew up in music a lot. Play guitar, grew up playing piano, played in a band. I played bass, learned slap bass, learned acoustic, learned fingerstyle, learned electric, learned to play the ukulele, like did a whole bunch of different things with music. I started even getting into music production, so like Ableton and all that software and stuff. And then it tapered off. And that was right in and around the time that I started getting into travel on my own.
Okay.
And I kind of let music go to the wayside. I actually used to run a music website. I was like a Toronto-based music blog when I used to live in the city. I ran it for 2 years in school. And I just let it all go. I don't even have like screenshots of the website anymore. It got quite big too. I was getting like pre-releases of albums for review. James Vincent McMorrow, his label, sent me I can't remember the name of the album, Tropical something, to listen to so I could do a review on the date of launch and stuff like that. And a whole bunch of artists from all over the world were like reaching out to me. And I didn't monetize it. It was just something I enjoyed that I did while I was in school because I needed something to do, I guess. Got bored maybe. And so, music kind of dropped off. I got into travel, and that's what kind of got me into, by extension, photography, really. And creatively, I wouldn't say like I was with music like anything special. But I definitely had like a side of me that was, I guess, creative based. But I'm a pretty analytical person. I overthink things.
That's the challenge with music, though, because you can sit there and you're like, like a dumb example. It's like the voicing's wrong and the way that you want to spread the notes out, and you have the melody sit there, and you're like, this needs to be a sharp, not a flat, and like,
and
then
it's mind-numbingly like you can rip yourself apart, just like you can with photography and your own photos and stuff like that. But I don't know. I feel like there's more of a freeing aspect of photography, looking at a picture. Sometimes the imperfections can be perfect in a photo, which I didn't always find in music. I felt like in music, there's patterns that you have to follow.
Once you know the patterns, you feel boxed in.
You do.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think you're like one of the realizations, like, because I started with music as well too, and it was like I would meet somebody who could sit at a piano, hear 3 notes, and then make a song out of it or something.
Yeah.
Were you at that level, or was that?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't anything like that good. I could play and probably learn songs by ear. I was practicing a lot, mostly fingerstyle acoustic. So like folky stuff, like City and Color, I could probably cover an entire album of his just because I was obsessed with his playing style. Hosier, I started picking up. Ben Howard,
Nice.
got into
Yeah.
him a lot when he was big as well. He's still big. And like I got into that kind of style of music because I found that in their playing style, it was unique. I found like uniqueness in their sounds. And so I tried to emulate that. And I started writing some of my own music to try to kind of grow as a musician. And I had a vocalist that I was partnering with. And I don't know what happened at the time, but we just kind of parted ways. We wrote like 5 songs and we were about to record, and we were starting to get like marketing together. We were reaching out to get a logo designed and everything so we could do like a mixtape sort of thing. And then we were going to try to get shows at like local coffee shops, but we parted ways. That was kind of like the extent of like where I got to. But I wouldn't say like I was like a savant or anything.
Okay.
I just took an interest in music and just loved it. I still love it.
Yeah. So do you find then with like when you're editing a photo, or even when you take a photo or make a photo, I don't know how you do, are you a maker or a taker? Before I continue.
Maybe more of a taker.
A taker?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you take a photo, with street photographers, it's very much like we make photography, we make photos.
Yeah.
And then I'll talk to other people. It's like, no, you take a photo. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know what camp I'm joining here now.
I've never heard that
never
before,
heard that?
but no, I think I would lean towards a taker, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's how you see it, because even if it's like a street, like a very, I'm not a traditional street photographer by any means. I'm not out there with my Leica or my like Fujifilm with pre-built color profiles, like
Yeah.
like running up to people on the street, like grabbing a face portrait like this far apart from somebody. But somebody like that, like they're making that moment, right? Versus
like Streets of New York, kind of.
Yeah.
Like where he does like an interview, or he or she, I don't even know who it is actually.
I think it's a he, but I forget his name.
And he does like a little interview and gets them to like write or like say a thing that I'm sure they must record it and then just transcribe it.
Yeah,
The caption of each. I see
Now
what you
you make
mean
me
though.
wanna
Yeah.
look.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. But
So
it's
you
like the
capture what's
artistry.
actually happening then. Okay. As opposed to influencing people on the street
Yeah, exactly.
to make something happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And the interesting part too with street is like the making the photo, I think, is like you're crafting the emotion. That's the artistry of it that you want people to have as a result of seeing the photo, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, what's the story of this old woman and her wrinkles?
Which
Like,
I love that, because I take that approach with my photography, but I do a completely different style of photography than you. But I can see that in your photos too. And I don't know how you do it actually, because like I think I've attempted like some street photography and I'm just like, I don't know how. Like there's like power lines everywhere. There's like just garbage on the
Construction
streets. And I'm like,
pylons,
how do you like how do you take the chaos and make it into something where you can draw a story from?
I actually really appreciate you. So thank you, because that's surprised me here. But so it's like I'll throw it around in a way, just because like I think it's like let's just go back to the old Man of Store example. You have the main shot that people take, but then you have the opportunity to make a new experience out of that location, and you can go into the pillars and grab the stone texture on the obelisks. You can isolate the obelisks with a 70 to 200 and create minimalism.
Okay.
And you know what I'm saying? Like
you're thinking how I think.
Okay.
When I approach like travel photography, that's exactly what I'm doing, is like establishing and then I work my way in, and that's how I tell my story of a single location. So you're doing exactly that, but with someone on the street.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
I tell
That
people
just, like,
I'm a
taught me a lot.
landscape. Yeah. I tell people I'm a landscape photographer in an urban environment. If that makes sense.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's very much like, so there's that part of it. And then the other thing that I realized is the most fun that I have doing street photography is I say it's also corny, but I came up with this when I was 23, so bear with me.
It's cool. Yeah.
I say I catch a vibe, and it's like I'll start my street photography, and yeah, exactly. I'm out of it for like 20 minutes, and I'm like, what do I capture? What do I make? Like, what do I do? And it's like, this isn't working. And then all of a sudden,
It clicks. Pun
I
intended.
see how people are moving, and I know what's happening in the city. And it's like people are coming home from work, and there's like this energy, and you're then gravitating towards like the flow of people. Or like if you go to Yorkville and people are at cafes, it like relaxes, and you're like, okay, let me capture like the guy with the cigarette sitting at the outside on the patio.
Okay.
And and you start building based on like how you see your impression of what's going on around you. And if I don't get that, I can't take a photo.
Dang.
I'll leave with nothing, and I'll be like, that was a waste of time. And it's just like these like, yeah, it sounds really corny, but it's true. Like you literally can, like, the sun's coming down, it's like blue hour, and you just get this like emotion that
You can sense it.
yeah.
Cool.
If you do it enough, you can figure it out.
Interesting. Okay. Maybe I should move to the city for like a few months and just
Give it
give
a
it a
go.
go. Yeah.
It's yeah. But I guess that leads me to a good question with you, because so then what do you really look to capture with your photography? Like if you, or maybe let's start with let's wind it back just a bit. What were you then looking for when you first started traveling with your experiences? Was it just at first 3 to 5 trips were like, I'm gonna go have fun? Or was it more like, I'm living this standard sort of lifestyle and I need to break my mold? Or like what was the
Maybe a mixture of both. I was working an internship when I first went to Europe, and the reason for going to Europe is because me and my best friend that I went with, his name is Josh. We're both kind of like a little bit of adrenaline junkies, and we both were at, I guess, a similar point in our lives where we were seeking just unadulterated adventure, just whatever we can throw ourselves in, just experience. We just wanted to do crazy things. And so the reason for buying the point and shoot wasn't just to snap like, oh, this is what the city of Berlin looks like, or this is Interlaken in Switzerland. It was let's also document what it is that we're doing, because we're doing some pretty crazy things. Like, for example, we had 5 days in Switzerland. 1 day was travel. We went to Lucerne, Bern, Engelberg, and I think one other location, Interlaken. It was Interlaken. And each day we had something different that was crazy, or seemingly crazy to like your average person, I suppose, that we did. So, and like, this was near the end of the trip. So we were already like 2.5 weeks in, and I'm financially like tapped. And then my buddy was like, well, I think I'm gonna go hang gliding today. I was like, oh, okay, I would love to do that, but like, money, I don't have it. I actually called my mom the night before and was like, Mom, like, this is expensive. Like, I don't know if I can swing this. She's like, well, you're only there. How often do you get there? I'm like, oh, that's the advice I needed to hear. So I was like, okay, whatever. Put it on credit. I'll pay for it after. And in those 4 days, we went to the top of Mount Titlis, which was unplanned. That was like a 10,000 foot peak mountain. We just did the tour around the peak. Super spectacular, very foggy day, just how we lucked out. So we were like tubing down a mountain at the top. Got to see some pretty cool things while we were up there. The next day we went bungee jumping over a mountain in Interlaken. I don't even remember which one, but it was in a gondola over a lake, like 2,000 or 3,000 feet up into the mountains, and the gondola was another 450 feet up in the air. So my friend did a front flip off. I just flew like an eagle. I felt like flying. So I got a really cool shot from that, just with the point and shoot kind of thing. And then that went on the IG, just documenting all these weird, crazy things that we were getting ourselves into. And then the day after was canyoning. We did canyoning, which we actually found out a week before Steve Aoki did the exact same canyoning experience that we were just on. So that was like sliding and jumping down a mountain for an entire day, and then swimming and rappelling and stuff. So we had like wetsuits on, helmets, like ropes harnessed up and everything. Yeah, we were like, there was one like little pool section. I remember partway through the day we took a break and you could climb up this like janky ladder. It was like falling apart and it was a cliff. So we just went cliff jumping in the middle of the day and we were doing like flips. Like, it was like me, Josh, and like some Russian guy we met who was on a date with this girl, actually.
Oh my God.
There was a whole group of us, but the three of us were just doing flips off this cliff in the middle of the Swiss mountains, you know? And then we went hang gliding. So like all of those experiences, like to this day, are some of like the most crazy things that I absolutely love and live for. And this is the adventure that I'm seeking when I go do other trips, like skiing the mountains for the first time out west in March, or going on a heli tour. I've never done that before, so that was entirely new. And I brought my camera to document it. I just want to capture, like, this is the cool stuff you can do in life. And if I can do it, anyone really can. I'm going to inspire people to live their lives to their fullest too. And that's, in a nutshell, what I want to show in my photography. I don't necessarily want to just show this landscape is super cool, although that's part of it. Go see the world. But I also want to encourage people to break out of your shell, try something new, challenge yourselves, take ownership over your life. And, you know, as much as we may live in that 9 to 5, or I do partially, you know, there's still a part of me that craves like this individuality in life and that experience. I'm still a person, you know, I'm not my 9 to 5 job. And that's where photography can take me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's also the bit of the debate too, where you see the creative is almost doesn't identify with their work in a way. I think I'm noticing a lot, because you can't isolate the creative as like, I'm a comedian, I'm a photographer. But like, if you ask somebody who's like a salesperson, oh, I do sales at X, you know, and it's like, wait, are you your profession in a way? That's interesting. So that experience, I guess I'm curious, because you mentioned that even when you're working like with a brand,
yeah,
you know, on assignment, you'll still make the time to like, okay, quickly snap the photo for myself if we're on location.
I'll try. Yeah. If it's there, if the shot's there and the opportunity's there, I definitely, why not?
Sneak it in. Yeah.
Yeah. As much as like I'm dedicating my time to these projects, the brands, and typically how I structure it is they're essentially sponsoring me to do what it is that I'm pitching them to do creatively to capture their product or service. And so on assignment, depending on, you know, what the deliverables or the ask are, if they give me free creative reign and the opportunity's there, and I'm, you know, fulfilling the duty that I had to that brand to get the shots I had pitched or are in my mind to deliver this product in its best light, so to speak, then yeah, hell yeah, I'm just, fuck it, the shot's right there, take it. Like, Jesus,
let's go.
Yeah, like, why not?
Do you include your motivations, or not, like what drives you to do photography when you initially reach out to a brand?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, as part of my media kit or pitch deck, I pitch a concept. So I'm doing an idea. This is the basis of the fundamentals of this trip. This is what we aim to do. This is what we are trying to achieve. There's a vision board to give them an idea of what to expect in terms of the images and locations. I'll talk about introduction of the team, so myself included and whoever else I might be partnering with. And then I have like a location page as well, which will highlight all the typical, like the main spots I'm looking to go to at that for that trip. And then just kind of top it off with like a thank you.
Okay.
And so the approach I take is I try to kind of lay out an idea of what this trip is going to be all about and where the locations are going to be. And it's almost always the same. Like, my intention is the same, because I'm not going to take on these trips with the limited vacation time I get from my 9 to 5 to do something that I don't want to do. Why transition from one job that I'm kind of just like, yeah, it's cool, but it's not what I want to do forever, to another job doing more of the same thing, just in a different discipline, right? I want to turn it into something that I can sustain, but I still love it. And so, yeah, I try to pitch brands that I think would fit well with the project. So I'm not going to pitch like, if I'm going to, I don't know, say Australia, I'm not going to pitch like skis. It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like, it's not,
I mean, New Zealand,
the
like-
location to ski. You can, that they have their own mountains and stuff you can ski. But like, it's, when you think Australia, you don't really like, I'm going to pitch brands that fit the bill, right? So, and hopefully they see that, and they see that effort and the thought process that's gone into the media kit I've put forth to them.
So how much of your pitches then really are story driven? Like how much?
Almost all of them.
Like,
Entirely.
do you craft brand new stories each time, or is it
Pretty much, yeah. It's based on the trip, on the location. Yeah.
So is it like 3 friends in Banff skiing? Like you're like
Exactly
running
that.
through it? Okay.
Yeah.
And so have you ever gotten feedback that maybe it's off brand, or how, like what, I guess 2 things maybe. The first one being, has a brand ever come back and been like, you missed the mark? And then maybe what do you find is the thing that is the most positively reinforced about what you do?
Yeah. To answer the first part, I'm not positive if, at least I'll speak to any of the brands that I've worked for. It's been all positive. I haven't had any negative feedback so far.
Nice.
Which has been
That's
really
great.
nice.
Yeah.
And even from the first trip that I went on as a photographer, content creator trip, was Iceland a year and a half ago. There was a little crew of us. That was like my first time being exposed to something like that. And it was a huge learning experience, massive learning experience. Even in that setting, at least to my knowledge, I don't think we got any, and since I don't think I've gotten any negative feedback, but I think it's a testament to the quality of the work that we were doing, but also that we were on the right track. We're doing something that people will buy into. And as such, that confidence kind of grew that, okay, so I'm onto something here. Perhaps it is possible to monetize this. And perhaps, end goal, make a living off of doing what I love. So yeah, I don't think, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think we received any negative feedback from brands we actually worked for. When it comes to the pitch or the media kit that we put forth, I think there's probably like the occasional brand just was like, oh, not really what we're looking for. They're never like, oh, we hate this idea, but they're just kind of like, it's not really kind of the path we're taking for our brand. Sorry. Okay, no problem. We thought it might be a good fit. You don't, that's okay. It's not like, I'm not going to hate your brand for not picking me, like, not that guy. But for the most part, it's usually pretty positive feedback, even if that brand says no. Maybe the timing is not right. And that's in most cases why they would say no. Now what was the second part of your question again?
What's like the thing that you seem, because I think why I asked the following question, is because when you work with a brand, generally, I think there's unique reasons why they work with particular people. And I guess my curiosity with you is like, why, or like, what do you think is, what did they tell you that they enjoyed about the experience? And
okay.
Do you know what your sort of like unique value add is? Or
I started doing, only recently I started doing like feedback surveys on my work. So I would deliver the deliverables, send out the email, and then at the end I'll have a little snippet with like a type form feedback survey. It's like very quick, a few questions. And I only have done that with 2 or 3 of the brands I've recently worked for. So I don't have too much to go off of to really answer this question, but it's all been positive feedback. Like and for the most part, they're pretty understanding. Like if the weather wasn't cooperative and what I initially pitched in the kit didn't match to the photos I exactly delivered, maybe the weather wasn't what we anticipated. They've all been like very understanding and very open to have at her. Like you guys are the experts. You have the creative ideas. Here's free reign. Have fun.
Well,
So they've been pretty like laissez-faire with that. So I think we've lucked out with some of the brands that I've worked with. And yeah, I think that's why I continue to work with a couple of the same ones over and over again, because we just get along really well. Yeah.
It's that relationship so important.
Yeah. Built that rapport, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. It's even funny too when you go out and you pitch. It's like I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and I go, like you literally, I'll go on LinkedIn and I have like 5 new LinkedIn messages every day about like some new service or whatever that I could be using.
Yeah.
There's just like all this noise out there.
Right.
And I find if you met somebody and you establish with them in some chance interaction at a coffee shop or something, you're a photographer, and like, they have or like an aspect of what you do is photography, and they have that idea, oh, if I need photos, okay, call Brock,
Yeah.
And then they also got on the same day a LinkedIn message from a photographer being like, hey, do you need photos, right? They're way more likely to go with the person that had a positive connection with them, like through an experience in a way. And if you reinforce that over time, like you're never going to give somebody a reason why they should really jump ship with you, So that's interesting. I guess the curiosity then when you're interacting with a brand, and maybe from that initial pitch, and then concept development is like, what's your creative process to like figure out how you're going to pitch, and maybe working through a shot list? Like, how do you come up with your ideas?
Yeah. Man, like these are great. Like, I love these questions. Because this is pretty much like what I predicate like my entire work on, is literally what you're asking. So this is super cool that I have like this medium to kind of share like my process.
I just want to know. It's like, so I'm glad you're willing to share.
Yeah. My process is very much like outdoor lifestyle adventure based, and that's kind of my bio, more or less. That's my reason for traveling. And so I really lean off of that, and I try to work with brands that resonate with the outdoors, mostly. I mean, I'm like watches. I've worked with watches. I've worked with beach towels. I've worked with mugs, coffee mugs.
Side note, beach towels is like an underrated niche.
Yeah.
I just discovered this. Towels are like a massive opportunity.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, like it's just random things that well, I guess beach towels, go outdoors, but like coffee mugs, you wouldn't really think like, what do they have to do with the outdoors?
Yeah.
But
hey, those
I find
death
a way
before
to...
decaf mugs.
Pardon?
Those death before decaf mugs.
Yeah.
Like
I've seen those. Yeah.
It's like the most photogenic mug, and they're just killing it. It's like secret, like multi-7-figure business that you don't know exists. It's like mugs. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. And like some of those like products or services that seemingly have nothing to do with the outdoors, there's still an opportunity there. It's just how you kind of tell the story, or what your intention was. So, for example, I worked with this company called the Cluticos, super cool dudes who run it. They have like these really awesome mugs that are like really rustic looking, like a man's man kind of mug. And when I first came across it, I was excited about the mug, and I actually ended up taking their mugs outdoors on like rocks at a beach, and I would shoot them on the rocks, and I just wait for like good lighting and just hope the sky would cooperate. And some of like my personal favorite photography of products that I've done were actually shot outdoors with these mugs on just rocks, and they are like, to this day, like some of my most favorite product photography that I've done, and it just happened to work out that way. So it's just an example of like, if you kind of break the mold a little bit, not everything needs to necessarily be shot in a studio. But my process is try to find something that would vibe or mesh with the nature of the trip that I'm pitching. So if I had a destination in mind, say Banff was the last one, and that trip was predicated on adventure, which is go to the mountains, ski, climb a mountain, hike, do anything and everything that someone who's in Banff would do, like immerse yourself in that culture, and live those experiences. I would take the brand with me. As long as that brand kind of fits that bill, then I'll build a story for the brand to fit the adventure. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I think so how much research then goes into learning the brand story?
That is really, really cool. Also, another good question. Considering I come from a business background, I think this is something that is kind of innate in me. Having worked for the bank in various different roles, sales roles included, happened to be a retail salesperson at one point in time.
Yeah.
Um, Sales to me is kind of like what I was good at first, and photography came in after, the creative side of things. And I think in my personal opinion, I would say for the large majority of creators, it's the creativity that comes first, and the business is something that a lot of people struggle with. They need to learn that second. Coming from that background, I think I have a pretty good idea, having gone through business school, studying honors majors in finance, studying case studies on large companies, working for a number of them myself, in previous odd jobs before. I have a pretty good innate sense of where they might be um, in their timeline and what their business model is, just from getting an idea of little tidbits of info in a discovery call or in just even emailing. So I call them conversational threads. And these are, I think it's an actual term that psychologists use. And they're little tidbits of information. When you ask open-ended questions, you can draw from that information and make your own, we'll say, assumptions. So in those threads that, in conversing with a marketing director and what they're looking for, they may not know that they're actually giving me valuable information about their business, but I can use that information they're giving me to build a sense of, okay, where are you at? What might your budget be? What are you looking for? Just in reviewing their website, I can even get a pretty good idea. What do you stand for? Do you even have a social corporate responsibility page that, if is it hard to find? Do you have a careers page? All of that stuff I'm looking for to get an idea of what is this business projecting to the world? And they're going to project what they want you to see. And if you're seeing the stuff they want you to see, then you can get a pretty good understanding of who they are right off the bat. It's just knowing how to read between the lines a little bit. Yeah, so I kind of just go off of those little threads a lot and just try to ask questions where they're obligated to answer without just a yes or no.
Yeah.
So I'm leading the conversation a little bit.
Yeah.
Sales tactics 101.
Basically. I think of everything you just said, because I'm trying to think along with you and how you're gonna get your information. The first thought that went through my head was, I wonder what his selection criteria is. However, then you highlighted corporate social responsibility, and I think that's very interesting because that's not something a lot of people look for. Is the environment important to you?
100%.
Yeah. What's the
first thing when I go to a brand's website? That's the first thing I'm looking for. I want to know that, are they in some capacity? I don't care how much. If your brand is doing something for the environment in some way and you're making it known, we're all human, right? We're all in this society, in this economy, just trying to figure it out. And it's apparent that at this point in time, I'm sure the science shows that the environment is quite important. We need to be doing something about it. And I'm very passionate about that as well. And it's a weird dichotomy, and I'm going to digress for a moment. Being a travel content creator, I know I have my own impacts that I'm trying to work on as well, as much as these massive companies do too. But we're all at different stages in doing so. We all have different knowledge on what that means and how we can help to improve on things. So what I'm looking for is someone who's just doing something. You're taking an effort, whether that be the early stages and you have a lot more to learn about it, great, so do I. I'm sure there's a lot of things that I can do as a travel content creator or just a human being to do better for this environment. I don't know what those things are, but I'm learning every day to try to improve on those systems and be better every day. If I could have the money to put solar panels on my home today, I would. I'd do that in a heartbeat. But how do I make that possible? Even things as simple as using reusable Q-tips. As weird as that might be, I do that. There's a personal fact about me. you know, just in small ways, I try to do that. And that's kind of the effort that I want to see other businesses taking as well, whether small or big. Are you, at the very least, is this something you're prioritizing? Because it's important to me. It obviously helps when I'm traveling to encourage others that are my audience or my followers to travel in such a way, like, leave no trace. As simple as that, you know?
When you go to these, I'm gonna say incredible destinations, mostly because I'm super jealous you made it to Norway.
Oh man.
What's the, like, does that just kind of like heighten your appreciation for the environment? And is it like a reminder every time
Yeah.
you get out of the city?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
100%. I really like going to like unique locations, and as I'm sure would most people, but a part of like Norway was actually a unique trip. Because I met up with Morten Monte. Pardon, forgive me, Morten, if I said your name. He's got his way of saying it. I don't pronounce it correctly, and I struggle with the R's. They pronounce R's differently in Norwegian. He is Norwegian, so he kind of like toured me around, and he had been to Lofoten a number of times, a handful of times before, so he really knows the islands quite well. And he kind of took me under his wing, which was like really nice of him. Not many people do that, and I'm really grateful to him for kind of showing me around and showing me the ropes. We also stayed at one of his friends' homes, which I am extremely grateful to her for kind of taking us into her home for a week, which is insane. And we did some work for her business as well while we were there. And what I learned from kind of both of them, her and Morten, was Norwegian culture. And Lofoten is like kind of like a little out of the, like, it's kind of like our version of going to the backcountry. Like, it's kind of out of the neck of the woods, right? You're out in the boonies a little bit. Still civilization, don't get me wrong, but very different way of life. Yeah, they really, really do prioritize the environment big time. I think the country as a whole is just taking that approach. Like, all of the Scandinavias very much so are doing that. And there's so much to learn from even how they approach like running a small business. Angelita is the one who runs Lofoten Seaweed, and she's harnessing the power of seaweed. Like, she's farming seaweed to, you know, use for cooking, use for just various different things, like to make sea salts, like seaweed sea salt. Like it's so cool. And I got to try some of her like seaweed sea salts and stuff like that, like I use in my recipes today when I'm making dinner at home.
That's epic.
And it's just crazy, like what they're doing to like seaweed of all things. You know?
How do they dry it? Like, because I went to Belize last year, and they have a similar like seaweed economy. It blew my mind. Yeah. But actually, the craziest part of that whole trip was we actually like went to a seaweed farm and we're like scrubbing seaweed lines down from algae, because they were like subsistence farmers. Like, they didn't have the algae repellent lines even, and they like would brush them every day.
Oh,
like, yeah, wild,
man.
But from skincare products to the salt, like you said, but they would just lie the seaweed out on the beach, dry it, and like scrape salt. Like,
yeah,
what's like they have? I'm guessing greenhouses, or like what's the?
Yeah, kind of. I think they have like dedicated rooms to dry it out and stuff like that. I got a little bit of like the inside, like the background of the business and stuff like that, but just having been around her for a week, and she helped us with a couple of our shoots and stuff we were working on, so we got to use some of their like wetsuits and whatnot to build out our surf set.
That's epic.
So we got to see, like, we had to go to one of her sheds that the business owns. Couldn't tell you where it was. I was like, man, like, this is so weird. Where am I?
Yeah, what am I doing?
But it was totally safe. And like, we went into the shed. There's like all these wetsuits hanging in a dark room, and it just smells of seaweed. They're like harvesting it and stuff. And they have their season too, where they can harvest a lot more, and then in others where it tends to grow and flourish. But yeah, I think Norwegian environment might be a little bit different than just laying it out on a beach.
Yeah,
because I mean, they get a lot of rain.
Yeah, like
they're right on the ocean, so I don't know how they. Yeah, I think she just uses rooms and stuff like that. Yeah, cool.
So then, what's the biggest? Three things. The one was the surf shoot that I want to talk about too. Yeah, let me know. Honestly, let's just jump onto that. Like, have you looked at Chris Burkhardt's work at all with the surfing in Norway stuff? Like, how big is polar photography for you? Is this something that like you're looking to chase? Are you looking to get into surf at all? Like, what's the?
I don't think. I don't think I could be a pave maker in that space, because I think I might be a little too late. I just turned 32, getting a little older. Opportunities to learn to surf are kind of scarce around here. It's not like quite as prominent in Ontario. I know people do, even locally. I know they do.
Yeah, I'm shocked. Like,
Yeah.
up in out west from Collingwood, I'm forgetting the name of the town now. We have some of the best surf in North America.
Yeah.
Or
I'm
I
not
don't want to say
surprised
North
to hear
America
that.
because obviously California, but some record-breaking waves in Georgian Bay on some
Oh.
small Ontario town. Yeah, that
Yeah.
nobody knows about. I forget the name of the town. It's bothering me. I'm gonna find this after and let you know because I was like mind blown.
You know, I'm not surprised to hear that, because I know even like in Oshawa, I'm pretty sure, or even Whitby as well, right off the Whitby Harbor, like if there's inclement weather, there's people out surfing. I've never seen them myself, but I know they are because I see the photos
exist, eh?
online. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
know exactly where that is. I grew up there. Like, you can't mistake it. But it was something I would absolutely love to do, because the adventure side of me would crave to try something new. And I've always dreamed of surfing. Since I was 15, actually. I do remember when I first thought of wanting to surf.
Never tried though.
Never had the opportunity to try it, and I don't think I would be anything special if I was to try to photograph.
Is that because you don't understand it in a way?
I don't know enough about it.
It's wild, eh?
Yeah.
Each like photo niche has its own intricacies that like you don't know till you.
Like the effort Chris Burkhardt is putting in to get his shots, like you see the shot, and I'm sure to any person it's like, oh yeah, that's cool. That looks pretty neat. Like I watched I think it was Under a Midnight Sun or something like that. It was a documentary about polar surfing in Iceland. Dude, this guy was traveling Iceland in like the middle of winter, like their main roads, Highway 1 and everything, to get around. And it's like up to my waist in snow.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
how are
wild.
you getting around? And like their car would get stuck. They've got all their surf gear and they're trying to get to these spots. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, how many people are actually doing something like that? The answer to that is like very few.
Yeah.
Like extremely few people. And the effort that he puts in just to even get to the spot, to have the opportunity to take that photo, is like insane. It's magnificent. The fact that he's putting this much thought and effort to be there, just to get there. And it's so easy to kind of, you know, as an outsider looking into the space, think like, oh, I could do that. And I don't want to say that I could and be like, yeah, like if I could just do that, I would love to. But I think there's so much more that goes into it than meets the eye that I'm hesitant to give that response that, yeah, I would love to get into polar surfing photography. Yeah, I could do that, because I think there's just so much more to it than meets the eye. And I don't want to discredit Chris Burkhardt,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
the guy's he's like another breed, man.
Next level.
What he's doing is, I have an appreciation for what he does, because I think I can have a sense, at the very least, a sense of the effort he's put in to even just be there. But unless I was to like tour with someone to kind of show me that world, I don't know that I could ever do it justice, proper justice.
Yeah. I guess then my question, kind of bringing this full circle for you, is, you know, you say you want to kind of do things that haven't been done, or I guess for lack of a better word, say like push what's possible.
Yeah.
What do you think then, if we're gonna maybe leave with a parting message, or sort of the future of what possibility you might see for yourself? What do you think your lane is, or that you want to, like what part of this do you want to like find new experiences in?
I don't necessarily know what that would look like, but I feel that I have the world at my fingertips. And I feel that with the right timing and the right mindset and the willingness, the drive to see the world, continue to see the world, I think that path may not necessarily be linear. And I don't have an exact goal. I just know that it's something that I want to achieve, is to be different and be groundbreaking. And a lot of that's selfish. I just want to prove it to myself. I can be great at something. I don't know if that's like an ego thing, maybe. Perhaps it is. I've always been, well, I would say fairly well-rounded, like good at a lot of things, but never amazing at any one. And I think considering having matured and kind of grown into my skin a little bit over the last decade, I've really discovered what it is that I know I love in life. And as long as I'm chasing that, I'll always be happy. So what that may look like, I think is, I don't know if it's a cop-out answer, but it's just the world. Whatever the world has to offer, that's what I want to showcase. And how I would showcase that differently, I have no idea. I know there's some really good people out there that are already doing, at least in my mind, just that. Like Chelsea Yemisi.
Yeah.
I think like Sam Colder, he's done that. Like I look up to them as the greats because I think they've taken different disciplines of photography or videography and filmmaking, and they've broken all the rules. They've made it their own. They've been able to mesh that with their own other passions and to kind of bring everything full circle. You know how we started with how there's so many layers to a person. You're more than just your 9 to 5. I'm more than, as much as I have a passion for travel and photography, I'm more than that. There's a lot more to me than just those two things in life. And I think people like Chelsea or Sam or any of the big names, really, I could list them. I'm not going to, but you could. They're all kind of taking their individuality and they're incorporating it into their work. And I think that in part is what's making them so great. It's because they're putting forth work and putting their attention to the things that they care and love about so much that that love and care will actually show through their work. It just goes full circle. So I think if I can continue to do what it is that I'm doing, perhaps maybe one day I'll actually find what tangible result that would look like. And maybe I'll come back to you that day and show you, hey, this is the picture I was chasing all these years. You know, this is what I was looking for. But I don't know that I can give like a straight answer to what that would look like without actually experiencing it. And I won't know what that will be until I get there.
Dude, if there's like any way that we would like land this plane of an interview, I think like that was it. I think that was just such a good, like, to sum up you as a creative, that would be like, that was perfect.
You got me thinking, like the gears are still turning. Like,
it actually even reminds me of like Sam Newton's The Shot. It's again why I love his work so much. Like especially lately, I've just been like watching his creative. He had this one thing about The Shot, and it's like you think you're gonna get. I can't remember. I saw it maybe 6 months ago. Last time I've watched it multiple times, but it was like that the shot never comes, and that's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
And it's like you're just constantly iterating. And each iteration is an introspection of yourself. And it's hard to communicate that. But I think in again, as the genesis of this podcast with like each creative profession, it's the longer you do it, the more introspective you become, because you're asking yourself, why am I waist deep in snow looking to take photos of people surfing?
Right.
Why am I driving 3-4 times a week 45 minutes to shoot street photography in 30-degree weather at sunset, right? Like, why are you going to Norway to meet up and explore sea? Like, but it's the chase, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, once you get that like old man of store photo, now all of a sudden you're looking for
what's next.
And so it's both a good and a bad thing. But at the same time, I think it helps develop that self-awareness piece, and you learn about yourself, because personally, I think it's like the human condition that's like, we're all searching for what's next.
Completely agree with that.
And we just happen to have mediums to be able to express it. And it's just like, yeah, so that's why I really love what you just said.
I couldn't agree with that more, and well said, because I think in a way, I think that's the point I was trying to get at, but it wasn't coming out in that way.
No, I think you did great, honestly.
You got me like, I mean, there's a lot more to talk about there, even on just the topic of self-awareness or the shot on its own. Like, that just brings up a lot to me, because I haven't ever actually printed any of my own work.
Really?
Because I feel like I haven't gotten that shot. Like if I'm going to print my own work, as much as I know everyone says you should to appreciate your work, I do. But I still feel in my mind that the pinnacle of the epitome is the word I'm looking for. The epitome of what it is that I can achieve in a single shot, I haven't found yet. The best of the best that I could ever create, for it to be my first photo that I'm going to print, it better be like one that I am personally over the moon about. Like, I could never get this shot again. Like, this is the shot that this is going on my wall.
I guess my question then is, like, I found it, so I remember, are we Peter McKinnon fanboys in this room, or are we?
I like
I
the
respect
guy.
the guy. I'm not gonna lie, I really do. I know some people have opinions, but I'm like, I just see what he's done, and I'm like, yeah, like, and I think people might have opinions about him because they may be a little bit, this is a controversial opinion, but they might be a little bit jealous, I think, in a lot of instances.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Are you getting at the bucket shot?
Yeah, because it's become cliche, but when it was released, it was something that spoke to everybody.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah.
Now, some people will highlight the fact that he monetized it way beyond, like, he had it on a coin, like he got it minted.
Yeah.
Like, by the Royal Mint, like, it was a coin like that.
I mean, why not? If you can, why not?
When you think about that it's in circulation though, like, I think there was like 100 of them, but you could pay with it.
Wow.
Yeah. Wild.
I don't know if I remember watching the episode. I don't know if I ever remembered him doing that. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. Okay.
Yeah, it was very brief. It was like a small release, and I think, I forget how much the coin was actually worth, but it wasn't, I don't even remember. It was a tuning, but it was like $100 or something or more for the tuning. Yeah, this was like way back, right? Like 2019.
This guy, he's a pave maker. He's breaking the rules.
In a way, right? But
In
doing
his own
it
way, yeah.
in his own way, with his own, like, creative capabilities in a way. And I think that's where people are like, he's not an actual filmmaker, because he started, like, if you watch his early videos.
I disagree with that. I don't think you can take away from the fact that he's still creating films. Like, if you go on his YouTube channel, he still has short form documentaries. He released, for the new year, like a silent film of, is it Justin Timber building something in the woods? Like, I thought it was super cool. Well, I haven't seen anyone else do something like that. Not on YouTube, at least. I'm not scouring the internet looking for that sort of thing, but like, in anyone I follow or in my kind of social circle, I haven't seen anything like that. I don't think you can't take that away from him. He still showed up, put in the time, put in the effort to create that.
Yeah, it's true. It's a self-reflection thing too. Like, I think with the Pete's Pirate Life thing as well, it has allowed him to, like, bring that less. I think at one point he was serving the algorithm, and now it's very much representative of, like, him also,
his individuality.
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah. Which, I mean, isn't that what we're all chasing?
And that's exactly it. It comes back to it, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, that was the bucket shot for me, where it's like, even he had the message of, like, okay, I took it, and I think he ended the video with, like, can't wait for the next one. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
what's next?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's
I don't think I've gotten that for me. Yeah.
We're gonna have part 2 of this interview, I think, and we're gonna reloop on what's next after a year goes by.
Dude, that would be sick. Imagine if I came to you next time around with, like, yep, I got the shot.
I got the shot. I got the trip.
I didn't know what it looked like at the time, but I see it now. Here it is.
Literally.
If I do, I'll get you a copy of it.
Hey, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you, man. Honestly, I want to say thanks for coming and making the time.
Yeah.
A 2-hour trek to get down here, and hopefully we'll reloop and talk photos sometime.
Definitely, man. I would love to. Yeah, 100%. This is what I live for. So
That's it.
yeah. Well, thank you as well for having me on. This has been really inspiring
Nice.
and motivational too.
I feel like
Yeah.
I'm pumped to hear that. So, and before we go, let's tell the people where they can find you, and we'll drop your socials in the description.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah. You can find me mostly on Instagram. That's kind of the main platform I use, at Daniel Battersby, which is just my name. And my website as well, I update occasionally, which is just danielbattersby.com. Those are the two most prominent things that I'm on. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And Spotify too. I'm making a playlist for each location I go to, and I call it Rome and then the location. So for example, Banff, I called it Rome, Alberta. So I made a playlist of just music that we listened to while we were roaming Banff in Canmore. And I have one for Norway and I have one for Iceland as well. So I started making that a thing just as a ode to the music past of me, to not let it go. Yeah. So you can find me there too if you want. I think it's d.battersby. I think it's my Spotify. But you can find all that stuff through my site too. Yeah, kind of a weird little like, yeah.
Sick. Yeah, I did want to ask you about that. Dude, honestly, thank you.